Hi, I'm Fred McNeil, and you're watching QAC TV7. We're delighted to have a show today where your delegate Steve Arentz, has been kind enough to come out. Steve, on a very hot, muggy, sticky July day. Happy Bastille Day. I just wish the humidity wasn't 100%.
Well, I think it's 107 at this point.
You sweat in the shower, I think.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Hey, look, let's do a couple things. I always like on the show, let's let the people get to know you a little bit. Where did Steve Arentz grow up? Where's home? Where was originally home?
Well, originally home was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a little town outside of Pittsburgh, about 5 miles north of the Point, town called Etna.
Okay, Etna, Pennsylvania.
Etna, a very, very small area. It was a mill town that turned into a great little town. Went to a high school, Etna High School, and I think our class, my total school enrollment from 7 to 12 was about 260
Oh, nice,
people.
small. Public school?
Public school.
Public school, okay.
Yeah.
Now, were you a sports guy, a theater guy? What'd you do to stay out of trouble or get in trouble in high school?
Actually, yeah, sports.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I wasn't the greatest, but I did play. I was a basketball player and a football player.
Okay.
Never made it to the big time, but
You enjoyed it?
It was something that kept me in school.
Okay.
You know, I think you and I, Fred, we've had this conversation probably before. I believe that if you are an athlete, sports is probably as important, if not more important, than anything else you'll learn in
Steve,
school.
it's the reason I went to school. Don't tell anybody.
It's the reason that kept me in school.
That's right. Now, how about mom and dad?
My dad was a crane operator for most of his life. My mother was a secretary. We moved around a little bit in Pittsburgh. We lived in some in the inner city for a little bit, grades up to my 3rd or 4th grade. Spent some time prior to that in other schools. Then we finally moved to Etna, and probably from 6 to 12, I went through school at Etna.
Okay, now brothers and sisters?
I have 3 sisters, 1 younger, 2 older, and an older brother.
And they're there, or were they?
Well, one is left in Pittsburgh, one is in Myrtle Beach. My brother.
So that's the one you want to visit in January.
In January. My brother lives in Alabama. I have a sister that's moving to Atlanta. She's from Ohio, and one of my older sisters still lives in Pittsburgh. Her and her husband and family.
So now let's speed things up a little. When did you come to Queen Anne's County?
I think I got here back in 1965. 1995. I'm
95.
sorry.
Okay.
Moved down here because I really moved from Pittsburgh actually to northern Virginia, but then I ended up moving over this way. I lived in Annapolis for a while, and I actually lived in Annapolis when I met my wife over here.
Right downtown, or?
Actually, no, on the outskirts of Annapolis. Right. I met my wife because I kept my boat at the marina down at Bay Bridge Marina, and I was selling it, and she owned Hemingway's at the time, and I had a little computer company that I was dealing with, and we met, we talked, we got married.
You worked out?
It worked out pretty good, yeah. I got 2 beautiful kids.
Now, tell me about that. The last time I talked to you on the phone, you were going to an all-star game. You got a heck of an athlete, I believe.
Well, my little girl, she's just a great kid. She's one of the honor students. She's going to be attending.
They're at Kent Island? She's at Kent Island
She's
High
at Kent Island High School, yeah, she was. She has been accepted to the University of Maryland.
Great.
In the honors class.
College
School.
Park.
Yeah,
that's where I graduated from, so Warner. It's a wonderful place.
It is, and we've been up there. But she was a 3-letter athlete. She played soccer, softball, and basketball.
Great. Okay. All right. Now, currently, your wife is.
My wife, my wife and I are real estate agents. But let me. I miss my son here.
Oh, good. Please, equal time here. We're in trouble.
He's a little. He's a 13-year-old.
Great.
He's just now going into 8th grade at Stevensville Middle School. Loves it. Has a passion for school. Loves basketball. He's actually in a band, and I think he's decided this year he wants to take up the tuba, which is an interesting instrument.
Heaviest instrument to carry, right?
Yeah, but I think he likes being a little different. He's played the French horn, and he enjoys it. So he's at one of the camps today that they have. So.
Good. Now let me ask you, what got you? I know you were always active in the community. What got you interested in politics? Always interested, or?
Well, I started off with a friend of mine asked me to get on the Chamber of Commerce, and
you were president of that for a while, I believe.
Yeah, I got into that, and I think within a year or 2, I was lucky enough to be president of the Chamber of Commerce. And as the Chamber of Commerce, I was on the Economic Development Commission in Queen Anne's County, and there was some transition there to where I became the chairman of the Economic Development Commission. Really enjoyed that. I think there's some challenges in Queen Anne's County at the time, and there still are, for that matter, on how we can move forward and do some things. So we aggressively approached that. I think we did some good things there. And then an election came up, and this little over 5 years ago, and somebody said, gee, why don't you give a shot at trying to be commissioner? And I said, wow, that'd be an interesting step, because I never really had an interest in that part of it.
That was the first time you ran for political office?
Correct, yeah. And I was very fortunate. I got in. I ran at large. I won the at large, and as being the at-large, you're automatically the president of the commission the first year, and then you're elected by your peers the second. Right. And I was fortunate the second and third year, my peers, and it was unanimous vote, and it was a good vote, I think, just because I think
you must have been doing a good job.
Yeah, and we were, sometimes we had a 3-2 on that, but I respected the other two guys, and I think we garnered the same respect. There were some times we had some passionate debates, but
that's politics, and that's being in public office, right?
Yeah, you're right. It was that, and then after the third year, Senator Pipkin left, and then Delegate Hershey moved up to the senator job, and they interviewed for delegates, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to be the.
And it worked out well.
I believe it worked out very well. I really, really miss Queen Anne's County government. As you see, it's a very passionate place to be. It can be exciting, it can be heartbreaking, but it was really, really rewarding. I think it was an opportunity for somebody like me to learn more than I ever thought I could learn. And I prided myself in knowing both sides of the discussion.
Whatever the issue was, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I tried to say after every meeting is, you as citizens, and we didn't get enough participation from the citizens up here, but you need to hold your elected officials accountable. And I think today that's still a very, very hot topic.
You believe in communicating with the people and giving them the facts and letting them know what's going on. Right?
Yeah, let them know, at least be decent enough to say to somebody, here's why I did what I did, and I'll give you my background on it. And I felt very, very comfortable doing that. It didn't always work out to where we walked out hugging each other, but certainly understood where I came from. Well, hopefully, but there's a lot of times that doesn't happen. There's people out there that if you don't agree with them, they hate you and they try to destroy you. And I think that's very small.
It gets silly. That's not what it's about.
It isn't what it's about, because truly, and I say this, and I can look you in the eye, Fred, I did nothing malicious that I thought could be construed as malicious. I tried to do the right thing based on all the information I had.
I thought during the campaign you stayed on the issues, never went after any individuals, any debate, and you just said, hey, look, here's I am, here's what I stand for, and let's talk about issues rather than personalities. I think you did a good job.
I think that's where you need to be. Unfortunately, that's not where the world's at right now. The world tries to.
Hey, look, before we go to your delegates and what's going on in Annapolis, we have one thing in common. You went to China, I believe.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about that, because I think we both we really love the experience. How about before we get on the delegates?
The China was magnificent. Yeah. It was an opportunity where the Economic Development Commission, which we, as we were an entity unto ourselves, and we had our own money, and the commission voted that they would allocate some of the dollars to send me over there. So that was a very good thing. And there's people that think I went on the county's dime, but I didn't. But it was still a great gift and a great opportunity for me. I learned, again, you learn so much about a culture you had no idea.
It was I had the most wonderful 11 days, ever traveling. I don't know how you felt about your trip.
It was magnificent. Like I say, I saw some things that broke my heart. I saw some things that inspired me, and it makes you really appreciate where you're from. I mean, technologies over there. There were areas that were so advanced and beautiful. Shanghai was like
the new Shanghai is like at a future world.
It was like Disneyland. It looked like when you flew in there and you wondered, don't they turn the lights off here? But we got there right before the Olympics were being held over there, so it was pretty exciting. I think some of the real interesting things were just looking at the dynamics of how that operates.
1 billion people. Yeah. That's unbelievable. Yeah. What's that number mean?
I joke, but we were riding in a bus one day and we hit somebody. It wasn't a violent hit, but we actually knocked a guy off his bike, and I said, aren't we going to stop? And he said, no. So we didn't. But the guy got up. So I assume, I don't know how they handled it.
So, yeah. I was impressed with the Chinese seemed to like Americans, and they I don't know how we were treated like royalty. I mean,
well, I always liked how there's a saying over there called "gum by."
Yes.
And that was a great saying because you got to finish.
It was a toast.
It was a toast. And I think because I'm a fairly large guy, we were in an area where they were just so cordial that they wanted to see if they could lift me. And It was cute to see the mayor of a city try to pick me up or pick me up.
After 20 come by toast.
Yeah, well,
Chip Brittingham still talks about we would sit at a table like you did, and everyone went around would do the toast, and as you know, you all say "come by." Well, after about 20 toasts, I think we all levitated rather than we lifted.
well, what was interesting was when the party leaders were in, we used to have 3 glasses, and when the party leaders came in, we only had 2. The gum by was put on the side a little bit till you got there.
It was a great experience.
It was. I mean, learning a little bit about them and how they and why they. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. For the most part, it's just like in America. We're all the same people.
Sure.
They believe and they think a lot like we do. Sometimes we let this thing we call politics get in the way of common sense.
It's a shame.
It is a shame because we met a lot, like I said, we met a lot of good people.
I was, and we'll get off this topic, but I was just amazed how much they all seem to like the American way of doing things. And hey, share with us. Now, we have a lot of things we can borrow from them, but their energy, and they work 7 days a week, 24 hours, I'm convinced, Steve. Right?
Truly they do. And we were never in any harm or what people would conceive as that. It was just, and I think as a result of that trip, the relationship between us and them with the new pavilion down at the college, that's part of what we try to accomplish over there. And I think all in all, it's a very good relationship. I would like to have seen it go a little further.
I hope we get the time and the energy and the money so we can do it again. It was
Exactly,
great, right?
exactly.
Now let's switch, let's go back to your delegates role. Hey, here's a question I've always wanted to ask a delegate. As a citizen, walk me through your 90-day session you have. What's a day like up in Annapolis when the session's going on? I mean, do you start at 5 in the morning, or how's it go?
Every day's a little bit different, but I've had the pleasure. My first year, I was on the Appropriations Committee, which completely
That's the money. That's the money.
That's where the money's handled. But sometimes that's a little vague on what we really do with the dollars and cents. So last year, that was the committee on. This year, I got moved over to the Economic Matters Committee, which is a little more suited to me as a businessman and somebody that tries to understand that. And what's really good about that committee is, and this is what excited me, we have the ability to kill bills in that committee. And I think it's one of the most conservative thinking groups.
So if a money bill comes up, is that what type of bill is that?
Well, types of bill come in are going to be insurance type. We deal with a lot of the regulations for insurance. We deal with business in general. People come in, and we got into a discussion about whether people that do your braiding of hair should be licensed or not, stuff like that. We would get into bills where a lady came in one day. This was kind of interesting because she wanted to limit what a restaurant could do. My background is a little bit in restaurants, that what I can serve you at your table. And it was actually kind of funny because her first comment was, I walk into a restaurant with my 2 young children. The first thing this waiter does is come up and he asks me, he says, to my child, he said, what kind of soda do you want? And it so infuriated me because my children aren't allowed to drink soda. And I looked at him, how dare you do that? And one of the other delegates, because this was all in our mind, he says, ma'am, I'm a little confused. He says, we used to call that type of moment a parenting moment. That why do you want government involved in that side of your life? And, those types of bills do come in, and they're interesting. But
so you can throw out the stuff that's kind of, hey, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and in committee is where that happens, Fred. You don't necessarily, by the time something gets to the House floor and we're all going to vote on it, it's pretty much set to move forward.
Ready to go.
And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of good amendments that get thrown up there. And I'll get into that process in a minute. But the way the day works is you typically go in and you either have a caucus meeting or some type of meeting early in the morning, like at the 8 o'clock or something like that in the morning. Session on Monday starts at 7 p.m. Every other day it starts at 10. So you'll have your caucus meetings prior to session. You'll go into session. If there's business to do, you'll get through the business of the day. And then by about 1 o'clock, you go into committee hearings. And committee
so it's caucus, the whole assembly, back to committee meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, the evenings can run long.
Now, midnight or?
Yeah, we've had some nights that were very, very long, and I'm fortunate enough, I think it's, there's a couple out there that really take you into the midnights. Judiciary is a very, very intense committee. They run through a lot of things, a lot of controversial things. And there were some bills out there that were just flat out not good bills in a lot of people's opinion, but they still get through. And you try to attack those bills in committee. But like I said, committee is where you really have the most power.
Okay. All right.
And people will listen to reason, and you can talk.
Now, Steve, are you commuting every day, or is there facilities to stay? Or what?
Actually, I stay over there just because of the intense schedule. I'm also part of the Republican caucus leadership.
So you're meeting on a real
You're
regular
meeting,
basis.
yeah. You have a whole lot of other things going on. We're trying to. It's a steering committee. I'm the chairman of the steering committee, and I always tease everybody. There's nobody I report to, and nobody reports to me. But
the best type of committee to be.
but the thing that we're trying to do over there, and it's something I'm pushing very hard, is that we have probably, if you ever really follow what we do in session, a lot of bills. There's 2,500 to 3,000 bills that you're looking
it's
at.
unbelievable number of reading and preparation.
And out of that number, there's a lot. You have to be aware of them. There's some bills that you typically will look at somebody, a person that you trust on another committee, that you'll see a bill that will flag it, and you'll say, hey, like I'll go to Jay Jacobs is on environmental matters.
Okay.
When an environmental bill comes up, obviously I have some background in that because I was fortunate enough to be a commissioner. And you'll sit there and you'll have a discussion with him. Well, how
Jay,
did you
help
see
me
it
out.
go?
Yeah, okay.
Jay, or there's several guys you can go to on there, and you try to have a conversation with them, and that's on both sides of the fence because one of the things we fail to do is a lot of people fail to do. They fail to try to understand why. There probably isn't a bill that's ever been introduced with malice in it.
Okay.
But when you start looking at the fiscal note, you have to dig into these bills a little deeper. And it may just be the word they're using, and the type of the word and how they use that word that really changed the whole concept of a bill.
Sure.
And you have to be aware of that. And as a new guy, you didn't see a lot of that.
Did you have a mentor? Was there someone who kind of said, Steve, I'll get you through the first year or not? Sink or swim?
I had a whole lot of mentors.
Okay.
When I was, and again, my luck came with, when I was with the county, I spent a lot of time over in Annapolis.
Okay.
We were trying to work through a lot of issues in the county, and some of them are controversial, the sewer down Route 8, stuff like that, and we'd go over there for different things for our county's government, because, in our first year as a commissioner, we had many hurdles.
Sure.
And that was a tumultuous year that ended up being a very good year for the county and for us, but I was over there a lot because a lot of what we had to do
You
for
kind
the
of
county.
knew what was, you felt the mechanics of it, or a little feel for
Yeah,
the
you got
mechanics
to.
of
I
it.
was introduced to a lot of people, and the good news on that is that it's no secret what the power source is over there. It's the majority party,
Sure,
and
sure.
I was of the minority party. But when I went over there, I got to meet and befriend a lot of the majority party. And the good
You
news
have to
is,
work with them, right?
well, you have to work
Yeah.
with them. But you know what? As I said to you about people are people, and we're all basically good people.
Trying to do the best for the state, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what we perceive to be the best, and sometimes those things get into discussions, and sometimes heated discussions. But we go through those, and as the laws start coming out or the bills start coming out, that's when it gets tougher and tougher.
Okay.
And you'll see that the same bill will be presented in the House, and that almost an identical bill will be in the Senate. And it'll be amazing sometimes the different votes. With the members over in the House, you'll say, gee, why did you vote for that? Why didn't you vote for that?
Yeah.
And the good news is you still have a nice computer system where you can sit back and say, let me read through this. And again, I key on
A computer right at your desk? You
right
can
at the
do it
desk.
Right at the desk,
yeah.
okay.
And you're in session, you have that computer, you're
You
running
just pull
through
up
the
whatever
bills.
you want to do, yeah.
Yeah. Typically, we'll get a list of bills that are going to be voted on that day, and you literally go through them prior to. And that's when you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning running through what are going to be voting on today to make sure I don't miss anything.
Now, how about, you got to have staff. Do you have a staff? I mean, I
Yes,
have no idea what your staff is.
As a delegate, I get an aide, and she's a wonderful lady.
It's like an administrative aide.
Administrative aide. She takes care of a lot of my work. Mary Jane Dreyer, and I'm. If you ever talk to her, you'll love her. She's extremely pleasant. She does a great job.
And she deals with the public when a phone call, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, phone calls, or if I have some research to do, she'll do that. But I'm also allowed to hire interns, and I try to get an intern either from Chesapeake College or Washington College.
So these are young kids who are interested
Yep.
in politics.
Could
and
be a
got local
junior or
government.
senior
Oh, great.
in
Okay.
college.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because when you bring a 21-year-old intern in, and whether he's a Republican or Democrat,
They're
it's
in love with
spirited.
the whole process. Right?
Well, they are, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting because you really have a great conversation with them, and you try to sit back and say, really, is this how you
The
think?
energy is what they have, is what the best
Yeah,
part of it.
and we tried to talk about it. One of the instances was paid sick leave, which paid sick leave is, in a lot of businesses you get that. In small businesses, that's very, very
It's tough to
hard to go.
afford, yeah.
And this young guy I had who's a great guy, he said, geez, I don't know why you'd ever have a problem with that. And I said, well, try to think about it from a small business guy. And it's great to see somebody grab what you're trying to say. You know, in a restaurant business, let's say, and I had to pay, let's say you didn't show up. It cost me money. I got to pay you for your time,
right.
and that's a little tough because you're on what they call tip credits, and you're basically being paid tips.
Okay.
So how do I pay you for no tips,
Yeah.
but I got to pay you, and that's minimum wage at that point. But not only do I have to pay you for your time, but I have to go hire somebody else and pay them for their time.
Okay.
And that's not just paying the couple dollars or the $60, $80 you make in minimum wage. That's paying for the benefits, blah, 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 and all the things we do down the line. So it becomes very costly for you. And sometimes that worker has to be me or the owner of the business. And you start looking at how do I now overcome that loss of money? And it was a real tough discussion with him, because when you have everybody believes businesses make money hand over fist, and that the margins are so big that we don't know what to do with all the money.
You realize the water level is always like this in all small businesses, I think.
Yeah, and I think, and that's where we get to fight in the Economic Matters. We can fight for small business, and we can really do a great job.
No, what you believe in, right? Your philosophical beliefs get to come out, right, when you're not only discussing it with an intern, but hey, when I get to vote and do my committee work. Right?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're having fun over there. You're enjoying it.
You know what, Fred, it's some of the hardest work I've ever done, but boy, it's some of the most rewarding, because there's things you're learning that, like I said, you just never even thought about before. Everything sounds good on front, you know, everything, when it first presented to you, well, why wouldn't you do that?
So it's like an onion. You start peeling the layers, you see things, and red flags start jumping out.
And again, you look at, one of the key things you have to do is you have to look at the fiscal note and figure out how are we going to pay for that? Okay. And where does the dollars come to justify that?
Good. Steve, we've got about 10 minutes left. You wanted to talk about some of the, I believe, issues that happened over in Annapolis, some things you wanted to talk about.
Well, I do want to talk, I want to touch on something that's really important to me. It's something we're doing over here in Queen Anne's County, and it's a piece of software for bullying, and that piece of software, I actually put a bill in this year to make it.
I know you were very involved with as a county commissioner. I was on the board of ed, and you'd always be talking to Dr. Williamson, hey, what are we doing with bullying in the school? So
it's a great interest to me, and I think the county, the county picked it up as a pilot, and the good news was I was gone, and the county decided to up the contract and renew it. But the good news about this stuff is it really is a tough environment sometimes for kids.
Sure.
We have our kids that are never going to be bullied. We have kids that are sometimes bullied, and we have kids that we just like to step on.
Sure.
And having been bullied, and probably been a bully in my
life.
life.
We all were, yeah.
You watch that and you sit back, and I'm not saying bullying can be the worst thing. It can be a character builder. But there are some devastating parts of this where you really have to help the helpless. And this software became so important to us. I mean, I think it's pretty well
explain
known.
what does it actually do, the software?
It's a piece of equipment. Well, actually, most every kid, most every person we know has a cell phone. Right. And the majority of the way that we communicate today, even as adults, is texting back and forth, even though you don't know how to do that, Fred.
Unfortunately, AT&T knows I do it too much when I get my bill.
But these kids, this is all they know. Sure. And this allows a child, or anybody, if you're sitting in a situation and you're watching something go on, you can actually text to a number and say, hey, you know, Fred's beating up Steve over here. Somebody ought to get in here.
Some bullying going on.
Yeah, and it's anonymous. It's not like I'm sitting here in the middle of something and everybody knows I told on Fred beating Steve up. Yeah. So now Fred will later go beat me up.
Yeah, I'm next on the list,
Yeah, so you're sitting down saying that. But this gives them the ability to do something anonymously, and it opens some things up. Now, when we did this, we never really thought about some of the repercussions and ramifications and consequences, if you will. One of the things we were able to glean from this, or they were able, I say we, but it's because I really believe in it, but it's a piece of software between a company and a county, was that it's actually prevented suicide.
Okay. Someone can actually get online, the problem is sent to some clearinghouse.
It's going to what they call like a clearinghouse. They're texting back and forth. They're having a real-time communication with someone. And this isn't as simple as me texting to you. This is me texting to a central system where I'm able to handle multiple calls, almost like a 911 for texting. And they take that information and they distribute it to the school and say, hey, you know, to the ombudsman, this is what's going on here. You got to address this. But they were able to open up a dialogue with some kids, and they found that this stuff is really happening. So this year I proposed a bill to the state that was making it mandatory for the schools to have this. And again, I go back to this thing we call the fiscal note, and it had a fiscal note. Sure. And the fiscal note was an unfunded mandate. And you being on a school board, you understand the dynamics of that.
Do this, but there's no money to do it, right? Yeah,
where do you get the dollars to do it? And again, it's thought out to the point where if you bring this, I believe you take this system to the PTAs or some sponsor, they'll pay for this. It's literally like 75 cents a student to have this. But we tend to forget that bullying doesn't just happen at school. It happens all day and all night.
School bus, playgrounds, little league sports, you name it.
Exactly. And the reason texting becomes important is that texting gets through when a phone call can't. You know, there is a smaller bandwidth. So anyway, we put this bill in. We got heard in Ways and Means. I had a group of people from Queen Anne's County come over. Just sensational.
Speak in favor of it.
Speak in favor of the bill. Even the guy that came out, there's a group that's out there that has to beat these bills to death. But he grabbed me later. He says, "I'd like to help you with this bill if we can find a way to pay for it, because it is a good bill."
Sure.
Well, the company that has this software has now gotten onto the almost like the GSA schedule. You know, where you can now purchase it and you don't have to go out to bid now. And that's one of the issues we have, is how do you buy something without all the competitive bids? So they're moving forward on that. So we did put that bill in. It got a lot of consideration. Unfortunately, it was never heard on the floor.
But it always takes a couple of years. Are you telling me?
Unfortunately, it does. On both sides of the aisle, this has gotten a favorable response, not to the point of the dollars. So I think if we can find a way this year to address the dollars and cents of that,
we might have all the county school boards having it.
Exactly. And when you look at the governor's push for heroin, the epidemic we have out there, this is another thing we were able to glean from this software. We can text that Eddie's being a mule for somebody, he's carrying drugs or he's selling drugs in the school, and that gives the school a heads up.
Great.
It ties into a little bit with the governor's push, and I think that's an admirable push.
People watching the show, if they want to help you with that bill by saying, hey, we'd like to help you by showing it up at a hearing or writing a petition, is there something they can do?
By all means. They can get in touch with me. They may have personal experiences. They may have ideas on how we can fund this. It is taboo right now, and we all know this. We don't have enough money in this state. The governor's done a phenomenal job. You know, I'd like to congratulate him on his reduction of the tolls. I know we're getting close on time, and I do want to say some of the great things that we have done here. He did the reduction in tolls, which is a big boost for Queen Anne's County and Queen Anne's County residents.
Came at a nice time. An awful lot of people around July 4th going to Ocean City with smiles on their faces.
Well, being a representative of Kent, Queen Anne, Cecil, and Caroline, we down here sometimes forget that to get out of Cecil County, you have to go over a bridge. And they have it a whole lot tougher than we do because of both toll plazas, toll bridges. And it becomes a very big deal for shopping and for doing what you want. I know in my own instance, I was actually combining trips to go to Annapolis. You know, I didn't want to run over when I just needed something. With a reduction in toll, you're less likely to do that, and you know, more people will travel over here. And whether we like to believe it in Queen Anne's County or not, we are a tourist trap. We rely and depend on those dollars to come through here.
Millions of people are on the way to the beach. Thank you for stopping at our local places.
Yeah, it causes us some anguish, but we got to really look at what the businesses are doing.
There's a lot of bills in the sea.
It really does, and it's a double-edged sword for us, unfortunately. But it's something we do need. The other big thing is, and tragic, you lose people. Route 404, the widening project. We have lobbied State Highway for that the last 2 years, and it's now coming into fruition where the governor has allocated the funding for that.
Make that trip to Rehoboth and the Delaware beaches a lot easier, Stephen, a lot safer.
Dangerous road. I've driven it a number of times, but I can tell you, I thank God that there are a couple times where I just have to pull off because somebody's coming hard on me. So we've been able to accomplish that. I think there's a whole lot of things that we go through day to day that we are able to beat and defeat, and that's important for us over there, because you do have a core group of people that are working diligently for it. Another piece that I wanted to touch on, at least from our district and even Queen Anne's County, is Queen Anne's County and our district is very fortunate, because if you look at the background we have of our delegation, we have Delegate Jacobs, who was a mayor of Rock Hall. We have Delegate Greist, who was a county commissioner in Caroline County. And you have me, who is county commissioner in Queen Anne. So we all have local government knowledge and experience. We were up in Cecil County a couple of weeks ago for a brief debriefing with the Republican Club, and one of the questions was, we got to stop all these unfunded things coming back from the state on us. And I said, well, you know, you're very lucky in this district, because we all understand that we don't need anything poured back on our counties. And what's unfortunate in the state is we have a lot of counties that relationship doesn't exist. between the commissioners and the delegation, and that's paramount because you have to be the ones, as they are here. We take legislation that the commissioners want. We go in there and we say, what are your priorities?
How can we help you?
We'll work with you, and they should be dictated to us that no more. We can't handle more, and that should be affecting our vote. And sometimes in the state, you hear that the state has their money and the county has their money. It's almost like a bad marriage sometimes, where your wife keeps track of her money and I keep track of my money.
Yeah, we're all in this together, right?
Well, you forget quickly that the state doesn't exist without the counties, and we're working hard to try to get that conveyed across the state.
Good.
It's exciting. It really
Sounds
is
like
exciting.
you're enjoying it. That's the important thing.
Well,
and you're doing a good job representing the people by being able to go to the locals and say, hey, look, tell me what's your problem. How can we help you?
Yeah, we get out, and I mean, I know we're running again. I keep talking about this, but
right.
the daily life is just unbelievable because you're going to a parade. You're attending a function.
I saw you in the front page of the papers in the Rock Hall parade. Next week you're in another parade. So there's a lot of public.
Well, yesterday I was with Comptroller Francho. He gave out the William Donald Schaefer Award to a local business over there, a businessman over there. And what he did was really special, and I think he does a great job over here because Comptroller Francho, if you look at the situation we ran into in Baltimore, there's actually the Speaker of the House and President Miller put together a commission, but the point of this commission is to really take a look at policemen and how we run our police departments. And it doesn't excite me to see that because we're blaming that situation, it seems, on the police only. And I'm not saying there aren't a bad cop here, there isn't a bad cop there. But we really have to look at what's causing that, and we have to address that. Well, Comptroller Francho came over, and he's trying to get to every police department in the state to thank them for what they do. It's a positive mode to sit back and say, we understand things are going on. We've had a couple bumps in the road over here, but I want you to know that we really appreciate what you're doing. And I think we sometimes forget through the cloudiness of everything that's going on, what a phenomenal job and how this world would be without them.
Well, I get to sleep at night because there's some policeman, man or woman, driving up and down the highway, right? Local or state or whatever.
Exactly. I almost met two of them coming in here today.
I don't want to ask how fast you were going.
But I think to his credit, he has done this, and it really felt good. He gives out his little challenge coins, and you know what? I think it was Napoleon said he discovered something about battle. He said, "Men will die for ribbons," and we really will, for that little pat on the back to know you're appreciated. And as a delegate, and this is something you really like to hear. Hey, thanks for what you're doing.
You're doing a good job.
And you're working for me. So.
Now, Steve, before we go, tell everybody, okay, if they want to contact you now or during the session, what are the ways we can do it?
Well, you can call me on my cell phone.
Okay.
My cell phone number is 410-310-0896.
And you always answer my phone call, so I know you'll come through. You answer.
Well, that's because I really haven't keyed your number in yet, Fred, so I see it.
You know I'm a Redskin fan.
I do that. Yeah, it's under Redskin. Okay. You also can reach me by email. My email address is steven.Arentz, ARENTZ, at house.state.md.us.
And they can go to the House of Delegates website and get that if they
get all the information you want me. That's probably the easiest way. I sometimes mess up my email, so don't take that as gospel.
Okay, all right.
And you could call my office, and unfortunately I don't call it a lot, so I don't have that number. But again, on the internet, which we all have,
it has each delegate's emails, faxes, and everything you need, right? Yeah. Which is good. And you encourage people.
Well, yeah, I really do. I try to answer every email. That doesn't mean I do. There are some that I just sit back and I put in, a different planet. But there are those that I want to listen to the other side. Good. And if you have an opinion or have an idea, contact me. And I try to encourage people, and it's the best way to approach anybody, that if you have a problem, have a solution.
That's right. And don't grind about it and fuss about it. Talk about it with you, right?
Yes.
Now, the only tough question of the day, will the Steelers survive without Dick LeBeau?
The Steelers will survive without Dick LeBeau. The defense will obviously be lacking. Dick's a great guy, and I always marvel at how important he was. A quick story, when James Harrison left the Steelers, and he's back right now. When he left the Steelers, he went to Cincinnati, and they asked him on an ESPN interview, what do you think about Mike Tomlin, who's the head coach? And he says he's a great coach. He's one of the guys. They asked him, what do you think about Dick LeBeau? And he started to cry. Oh, he's an amazing man. He is an amazing man.
Mid-70s, he has a body of a 30-year-old and one of the most passionate speakers I've ever heard.
He's a great guy.
Now, look, Steve, thank you very much for being with us. Hopefully we'll do this on a regular basis.
I'd love to. Okay. And again, I want to thank you. You do this stuff, and I think it's just so important people see this.
want the people to know who you are, how to get in touch with you, and what you represent, right?
I hope I can convey that better.
You can do it. And by the way, wish your daughter best of luck at College Park. It survived me for 4 years, and I'm sure she's going to be a better rep than I was.
I hope she does a good job there. She's a bright kid. She does good.
For her. Steve,
and my son's the same.
Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it.
I'm Fred McNeil. You're watching QAC TV7. We've had your delegate, Steve Arentz, with us, who encourages you to call him, email him, contact him. He'd like to hear from you. Thanks again for watching QAC TV7. My time's up. Thank you for your time. We're going to see you next time.